Everyone, welcome to Pit Stops Podium, the RevPartners podcast, where we talk to execs who have competed and won, taking companies from high growth to high scale. My name is Brendan Tollison. I am the co-founder and CEO of RevPartners, and I'm delighted to have with me today Bob Phibbs, the retail doctor. Welcome, Bob.
Good to be here.
Well, Bob, this is going to be a fun episode. You've got so many great insights, especially on the B2C side. For those that don't know who Bob is, he's an internationally recognized business strategist, customer service expert, sales coach, author, speaker. And in fact, Bob, you got a great award back in 2020. So as it relates to helping retail companies respond and get back on their feet after COVID, what was the title or the award was the CSP, right? Certified Speaking Professional?
Yeah. You have to go back and talk to your clients for the last 10 years and verify that they liked you. And then they have to do a survey, and then you have to have your video watched by other speakers. So it's kind of an intense program. So it was great to get that done just before COVID. So it was good.
I would imagine. And for our audience who's getting to know you, SalesRX, who is SalesRX and what do you do?
So SalesRX is my online retail sales training program. Used to go through and I would just, I still do it, but train in person. And about 7 years ago, I said, it better come up with a way to virtually do this. And back in those days, it was like a Max Headroom type of a pixelated head that was pretty crappy. So it's all interactive, and that's what makes the difference. We're on 4 continents with, I think I'm training over 10,000 people right now as we speak. So it all worked out really well. And, I think at the end of the day, anybody who is in business is always looking at what's the next thing. And I think there's a lot of noise, but you got to figure out, how can I grow when I can't be everywhere at once? And for me, SalesRX, my online training, did that.
That's fantastic. Well, Bob, it's like I said, it's a pleasure to speak with you. We'll get into our big idea in just a second in light of some of those lessons you've learned. But before we get into the big idea, we have a tradition here at Pit Stops Podium, and that's to get to know our guests outside of work. So what are 3 fun facts that our audience should know about you?
Got my degree as a music conductor, and I I wrote to a bunch of Broadway conductors and I said, how do I be like you? And almost all of them came back, oh, you better be great on the piano. I was like, well, that sucks. I'm terrible on piano. So that was kind of gone. But I still had, as a hobby, I was able to be a choral director up until 2004 when I retired. We were a group, one of 3 resident companies at the Carpenter Performing Arts Center in Long Beach with 1,000 people. So that worked out great. But,
is there a certain instrument you like to play best? I know piano is definitely not.
I play people. I'm a conductor. So,
okay.
My minor was in trombone and piano. But, so it was good. I love it and did great work there. That was great. Also an avid dahlia gardener. My grandfather used to grow them by the thousands when he was in his 60s. He said, I'm tired of having a garden for food. I have a garden just for me. And at 65, he would plant all these in the Shenandoah Valley, and then he would dig them up in the fall, and he'd have to write the name on each and put them in the root cellar. And so his organization skills and his passion kind of led me to be very organized when I do mine. But let's see, a third thing probably would be Lemonade Day. Lemonade Day is out of Houston. I read about them probably 10 years ago. Guy starts off, his kid wants to open a lemonade stand. He says, sorry, guy, I forgot who the founder of Lemonade Day is. But anyway, he created a program to explain all the things you need to start a business. So understanding how you're going to get the money. You had to take out a loan from him, and you had to learn about location and pricing and marketing. And the goal was you spend a third, you save a third, and you give back a third. And I read about this, and he made it into a book, and it actually is what we did. So we opened 500 lemonade stands in 2018 in one of the poorest counties in Greene County, New York, and taught kids how to be entrepreneurs. And you could tell because some of them would go through and, other people would open a lemonade stand because they saw we had lemonade stands, but our people were at like $4, $5 a cup, and up here like at 10 cents. Like, obviously you did not read the book. So it made a big difference. It was great. So yeah.
That's really neat. Do you have kids yourself?
I do not. So that worked out really well.
Well, I appreciate you sharing a little bit about your passion. It's always fun to get to know a guest and just their background. So thanks for doing that. we talked a little bit about kind of your background and really from a work perspective, and especially within the kind of retail and the B2C segment. And it seems to be B2B can sometimes be laggards in terms of how they think about go to market. And oftentimes there are actual insights or application rather that they can learn from the B2C segment. And so I'm really excited to talk to you. And the big idea we're talking about is the product is no longer the hero. And this is a really good time for that type of conversation. So before we get into some of those anchor topics around that, what's the contextual layer here? And what do you mean by that? The product is no longer the hero?
Well, in the old days, certainly in retail, which what I work in, obviously as the retail doctor, we'd go through and we'd train everybody that the product is the hero. This widget has this, it does that and that. A lot of B2B companies still do that same thing. Oh, we have a new way to whatever, filter your email, get you SEO, whatever. And the product is the hero. It does all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, well, you know what? We work in a kryptonite world and I want to be the hero. So if your product doesn't make me with my bat belt on or whatever, doesn't clip onto my bat belt, another accessory to make me the hero, you're going to miss it. And the problem is we aren't teaching selling anymore. Certainly a lot of B2B companies, it's so much of workflows and drip campaigns and mindless emails that you don't realize that you've got to end up making that your people who are out there and your salespeople, you got to make them heroes. Because only a hero is going to sell to me. I mean, chances of me opening an email from somebody is less than 5% because they're either so poorly written or so look at me. I'm not going to tell you what works to get me to open an email, but I will say that the whole idea of around selling is you're going to have to find a way to get your salespeople confidence up and be willing to go through and push back when somebody's like, well, yeah, I don't need what you want. They've got to know what to do with that. And part of the problem that we deal with in retail is employees are selling from their own wallets. So they can't imagine somebody spending money for this. Doesn't matter if it's a $30,000 vintage Hermes bag or it's the latest Adidas that are $150. Doesn't matter. They know they can get it online or cheaper or whatever. And the same thing runs into B2B companies that if somebody doesn't really believe in it, it's really hard to sell because selling is nothing more than transference of feeling. So if you don't believe in it and you've hired people who aren't trained and don't know how to sell it, chances are good when they run into a little objection, oh, this is too much money or it's this or that, they'll fold their tent and leave. And that's why so many businesses, I think, leave money on the table when they really could have it if you just taught people how to sell and be nice.
I like that line of the transference of feeling. We'll get to that in a bit. But let's start a little bit. I mean, the way that I would think about that too is that the customer is a hero, not you. And so where did this mind shift start happening? Where to your point, it used to be very much, hey, the product is front and center. And now we're thinking more about like changing the spotlight from the product to that customer. What is kind of the genesis or the origin of that shift and why do you see that happening?
Well, I think the reality is we are becoming more surrounded by technology and people are losing their humanity. And that goes for people who are selling things as well as customers. Customers don't want to feel like they are being manipulated, even though we are with social media and a million other things. But it really comes down to the idea that it's human to human contact. And I think certainly in the, what are they called? The aughts, the 2015s to 2020. I think automation had its heyday and we really figured, oh, well, if I just have enough workflows in place, I have the right email, it'll all work. And suddenly after COVID, people are like, no, I'm a human being. And if you're not going to talk to me as a human being, I'm out. But more importantly, the workforce is saying the same thing. That if you want to treat me as a cog just to have so many leads and call and whether it's successful or not, I think people are dropping out left and right, and they don't want to be treated that way. So the problem is we haven't really trained people that there's another way. And so until you actually explore that, I think you're really stuck in whatever you're trying to sell. B2B, B2C, doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, to your point, like people saw this, what they could do with technology, and there were a lot of benefits to it, but the impact and unforeseen consequences, you mentioned some of it, like the email response rate or even open rate for that matter is lower. And you see with GDPR in Europe and even getting now in the United States, like data privacy, people are tired of it. And so it does require that there is that shift happening. And to your point, how do you embrace that shift and still be able, you can still be effective. It just requires a different mindset and ultimately different type of tactics. So one of the things that you mentioned, Bob, in your first response is employees selling from their own wallets. What do you mean by that?
Well, that again, they can't afford it, so they can't imagine somebody else affording it, right? So whatever that is, you're selling training, you're selling real estate, whatever you're selling, we tend to sell from our own wallets. Like if I can afford it, that's not always true. I mean, obviously people are selling multi-million-dollar yachts, but at that level, you've got such an experience of confidence behind you that you can give the illusion that you've got it, right? You're still confident that you know how to sell this because you've done it before. But we have so many younger people coming into the market with no experience like that it becomes really hard because quite simply, you have to really get your head in the game and say, well, maybe, the example I always use is look at somebody's arm and you see how many tats they've got on there. How much those tattoos cost? That's $1,000. Great. That's what this is for this guy. Oh, because you just don't know, right? I mean, we've heard stories of young guys working in a gas station, or women working in a gas station and going out and buy a $30,000 set of golf clubs because what they want. So everything is being turned on its head about what we know about people. But what we do know is that when someone is willing to put money in one area, then that confidence should be able to transfer when they go to sell something else. But that takes a lot more than just watch this video.
Yeah, I think it gets that whole mind shift, it sounds like, in the sense of one of the things that we talk about here is like one of our values is 100% stewardship. And it's like, think like an owner. And so really truly understand like the impact and ramifications and costs associated with whatever that is that you're selling. And that's not just so I think it's what you were talking about, like that transference of feeling, like understanding, like what is that true value, and knowing what that value is to the person you're selling to, is really important. Let's move into the last part because it was something you talked about at the very end, which gets into kind of that training component. So how do you actually multiply that or see that compound aspect? And it seems like that's where the training is so critical of the one to many, where it's not just you, but it's the team that you're trying to help empower.
You have to hit it out of the park at onboarding to start with. I mean, onboarding has got to be amazing because the care that you give with onboarding is going to be the care you give to them, and it's the care you give them is what they're going to give to your customers. People think that people are quitting businesses left and right. No, people are quitting bosses left and right. That's the difference. You build your people and they build your business. This idea that you're going to build your business because you're a superhero, that's really nice 1980s thinking, but it's not quite 2020s because everybody else realized it's a we moment, not an I. And so that idea of what does training look like, I think an awful lot of people also have been able to say in the past, oh, we'll give you a raise. You're a great salesperson. You're not a sales manager. Well, without training, that could be the worst thing you could do to your company because they don't know what success looks like. They don't know how to get it. They motivate themselves, but now you got to motivate 10 people and they crash and burn. And then we just say, yeah, these couldn't handle it. Well, that's true, but neither could you. If you'd really done it, you'd realize, holy crap, they don't know how to X, Y, and Z. And we're going to have to go out and get somebody who can help them with that. So it's all that to say is, any business is about being brilliant on the basics. Yeah, you can go through and talk metaverse and AI and all this other crap. But at the end of the day, any business is going to rise or fall based on your human skills. And if you figure that out early enough, you can be doing millions of dollars of business. We've been with SalesRX over the years. We're doing quite well. But at the end of the day, it still comes to that human connection between buyer and seller. And the product is just, there's always somebody out there cheaper. There's 10, 20 different options anyone can choose at one time. But if you can't enunciate why you for that one customer, again, I think you're just going to struggle a lot harder. So it doesn't a quantity thing. It's understanding what's the process and can you duplicate it over and over again.
I like that. There's a lot to unpack there. I mean, I think one of the common or one of the threads in your whole kind of response is really around like the humanity, the human element of connection. And one of the things you said just reminded me of doing the basics really well. And I was listening to Patrick Lencioni, and he was talking about like Southwest Airlines, and he asked the CEO, like, why aren't your other competitors doing these, like what seems like the basics and doing it really well? And he said, I think it's because they think it's beneath them. And it's a whole mindset of like being very focused on doing the things you know you can do really well, and may seem basic, but very few actually do it. So the question I have for you is, you talk about like onboarding and then ongoing training seem to be two really key pillars. Who do you see doing it well, or what's something that you focus on when you think about onboarding? Are there, if you were to say, hey, these are the areas that I think are really important that need to get addressed in onboarding, is there anything that comes to mind for you?
Well, I'm doing it really well onboarding, but so
what are you doing really well?
What the hell am I doing well? But I think, it's interesting. I was flying from Seattle last week, and United, the guy, Christian, was amazing. This guy was amazing. And I just said, when did you start working customer service? He goes, when I was 10. He goes, just like it. And he's 30. He goes, I've been working for United for a year. I said, you're the guy that should be teaching. You're the guy that we would all like to say you made a difference. So I think there's a lot of people that have been known. Starbucks was known for their onboarding, their training for a long time, 2 weeks before you get in. However, what's one of the things that we're hearing about Starbucks, unionization, everything? One of the demands is more training. So I think the challenge for everybody today is we get caught up in compliance. Oh, okay. So Brendan, yeah, you know where that is. You did that. Yeah, great. Let's get him out there. Instead of, do we put too much crap in his head? Does he know what success looks like? And so that's my big idea for you is, at every step, do they know what success looks like? If they don't, that usually means you don't know what success is. And if you don't know it, shame on you as a leader, because you should be able to, even if nothing else, to be able to say, so what do you think success looks like in this position? Get them to tell you, like, I have no idea. Great. Because I'd rather they hold up a mirror to you than to go down this quiet path where you end up having mistakes months later. Perfect example. One of my very first clients 30 years ago. So Mike was a little coffee roaster, and this woman came up to him at Christmas time, and she goes, hey, Mike, can I get 10 pounds of coffee instead of my usual one? And he goes, what are you talking about? He goes, oh, well, when I started, they said you get a free pound of coffee every month. And he goes, I've never had that policy. What are you talking about? And this has been going on for years with him. And I was like, Mike, whose fault is that? He goes, I guess it's mine. I go, you're damn right that was yours. So always check and make sure that what you want to happen is happening. And don't be afraid of asking the tough questions and saying, how am I doing as a boss? Because quite simply, we have 2 jobs open for every person that's looking right now. That's not going to magically change. Even if we're in a recession, this recession defies all logic, because theoretically demand goes down, inflation goes down because demand goes down. We fire a bunch of people. Other than Meta and some other technology agents, we still can't get enough people. So, and people have, they're selling clothes or they're selling services, do the side hustles that'll never be found by payroll records. So if we are in one, don't let that deter you, because I just don't think that we've got the full picture. But what will happen is competition, no matter what you're selling, it's just going to continue to grow, because everybody wants to go and say, oh, I have a unique idea. Maybe, but the one that can sell it is the one that's going to be successful.
I like that. I really like the accountability that you just outlined of the question that we should all ask ourselves is, what does success look like? And if we can't answer that, then that means we are not being effective as a leader, or if we're not getting what we want or desire of an employee, it's probably because we haven't created clarity for that person. So it's a good reminder of the importance of onboarding and training. Well, Bob, thank you so much for joining us today. I really do appreciate these insights. This is just fantastic. If our audience wants to engage with you, what's a way that they can connect or learn more?
What do you mean if they want to connect with me? Of course they want to connect with me. So just find me on LinkedIn, Bob Phibbs, the retail doc. I got, I don't know, 400,000 followers over there, and certainly on Facebook. And if I stay on Twitter, I'm still not sure what's going to happen with everything there. And then you can always check out retaildoc.com or SalesRX, SalesRX.com.
Fantastic. Well, Bob, thank you so much for being willing to join us. And I know our audience will connect with you on one of those 2 websites and be following you once this comes out. So thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too, man.